Welcome back to another episode of Quantum Alchemists. This is episode 14. Fear not. I am your host, Mr. Alchemistic, but you can call me B, and I'm joined by my very gracious co-host, Mr. Quantum himself, Alex Romero Benjian. How you doing, brother?
What's up, B? What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. So great to see you today. It's been long overdue, even though it's been like what, 2 weeks? It's still too long.
It's
Um,
almost 2 weeks,
and
yeah.
almost, yeah. It's been a lot of stuff has been going on. Um, I know I've been kind of tuning in a little bit to the collective energies of what's been going on. I know my world has been definitely rocked. And I've been keeping up with like what's been going on in the world, and it seems like the world's getting rocked in so many different ways. And yeah, today we are tuning in to close out basically December 2024. And I think that we may this may be the last one of the year. We're not sure, but I wanted to make sure that we at least got this last one in, and we got to talk about game theory. So that's what we're going to tune in and talk about today. And I think B, he had some really great points lined up that he wanted to discuss today. And there's one of the things I'll say about game theory is that our entire lives are based on game theory, right? Everything that we do is based on a narrative, where someone you don't play games you don't intend to win, right? Like, do you play a game be like, I want to lose this game? Like, no, like fuck says that. No, you're gonna play a game you're like, because I want to win. I want to either gain an advantage or I want to dominate something because that's what our nature is. We're hunters, right? We tend to dominate things. We go and we annihilate shit, you know, or we just take over. But now what happens is, like there's a balance that's disturbed there, right? When you just come in, you just take, and it's like whoa, like there's actually a homeostasis, that actually was at play here. And when you start disrupting that homeostasis, you start changing the dynamics of relationships in different circles and different areas, and then you have chaos, complete chaos. And look around us, we're in complete chaos right now. So I think today's topic of game theory is absolutely on the money. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of give my little 2 cents about that, and kind of like see, what you got going on, and tell me about what's happening in your reality with your games that you're playing over there.
Speaking of games, I talked a lot about my game last episode, Kundalini, the game, and I have a quote that actually kind of talks about a little bit of the stuff that I was mentioning last week, the things I've incorporated into my game about the Kabbalah and the Sephiroth and the 22 paths of the Tree of Life, and I have a quote about the Kabbalah from Nevin Parr. To appreciate the Kabbalah, you have to understand just how in depth the system is. Thus far, I have elaborated on the tree of life and the 10 spheres. However, there are 22 connecting paths between them. The 22 paths, along with the 10 Sephiroth, equal the 32 paths of wisdom. The 32 paths correlate with the 22 major arcana of the tarot, which in turn correspond with the three main elements of air, fire, and water, the 12 zodiac, and the seven ancient planets. The elements in this case are called transitional elements since they represent energies in transit between the Sephiroth. The 22 paths also correlate with the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are considered very magical in their use, whether through writing or pronunciation of the Hebrew divine names. Everything I have just mentioned is regarded as Hermetic knowledge, since Hermeticism is essentially the study of our solar system and its energies. As mentioned, the Kabbalah is the blueprint of the universe, our solar system in particular, including the cosmic planes of existence. The 10 Sephiroth are states of consciousness. The connecting paths are the energies that flow in and out of those states. Understanding these paths will offer you immense insight into your psyche and personality and give you a roadmap for going from one state of consciousness to the next safely and efficiently. That's an excerpt from the Magus, or the Magus,
The
Kundalini and
Magus.
the the Magas, Kundalini and the Golden Dawn by Nevin Parr. So last week talked about correlation between the tarot and the tree of life, which is the Hebrew mystic tradition, the Kabbalah. This is part of the game. This is part of the game of life. And this is the part of the game that's hidden from you. This is the part of the game that is, there's concrete steps taken to keep humanity from discovering these truths. And this is part of game theory because the practitioners of game theory are using subterfuge and illusion to warp the senses of the mind, which can bring me to one of the things we want to talk about, which is this big drone thing that's happening right now.
Misdirection.
Misdirection. What is the point? We talked about it briefly in the free talk. What is it? What are these drones all about? It's about distraction. Why are they distracting us? What are they distracting us from? Well, they want to put you in a state of fear. They want to put you in a state of fear and unknowing. What are these drones all about? The government's not saying anything. They seem to not know what they're about, which they do. But they want to put you in a state of uncertainty, in a state of unknowing. And this is part of the low vibrational, lower three chakras that they keep you in on the tree of life, this lower energy of fear.
Right.
And that's part of the game. That's part of how they keep you playing checkers while they're playing chess. It's all game theory. And game theory is, I'll give you a perfect example of game theory, and it will segue into the users of game theory and their purpose for doing this. And most of it is to conceal truth, conceal the truths like the stuff in the Kabbalah, the Sephiroth, the paths of life, the tarot. They want to make tarot's evil. Stay away from that because they don't want
Well,
you to unlock the sacred knowledge that is encoded within the symbolism of the tarot and the tree of life. Because this is keys to understanding how to start playing chess in life and stop playing checkers. They want you to be
well,
a bunch of checker players.
there's
Right?
two things, right? There's the spiritual aspect of things because how can you evolve, right? And how can you become a dominant conscious being that's not a simp, that's not ruled over if you don't have the knowledge of who you truly are. That's the first thing. The second thing is the games are rigged so that all the energy and all of the value that you acquire goes in one direction. It goes from the bottom to the top. There's no recycle of that flow. It's just one direction, right? Like because these people they don't want to give their fair share in taxes or whatever it is, like the 99% or the consumers, like they work for their money and they give the money up the chain, right? So like this is a way that the games are rigged, right? Because your life force energy is tied to the money that you make. And then the things that you're going to spend it on is them winning the game, right? Because they're getting you to spend the money in their game. You're buying their products, you're buying their goods, they're winning the game. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the key elements of game theory is to get forces to work against each other to your benefit without you getting your hands dirty. This is one
Yeah.
of the key elements of game theory. The practitioners, the users of game theory, I'll use an example of Israel and the Mossad, right? The Mossad is the Israeli CIA Black Ops intelligence. The Mossad, their motto is by way of deception, we shall do war, right? And one of the things that the Mossad does is it infiltrates different organizations and gets them to fight against each other
Mm-hmm.
to the benefit of Israel, to the benefit of them, without Israel
No shots,
directly
no
getting their
shots
hand,
fired.
without getting Israel directly getting their hands dirty. And you see it in all of their political movements, right? Israel is always set up, at least in the United States, as this. Oh, they're our friend. We have to defend them against all these evil forces that want to take them out in the Middle East, right? So Israel is this stirrer of the pot in the Middle East.
Yeah. Which
All
is
these
funny
different
because they're the leading intelligence state in the entire world, by the way. Please
yeah, all
continue.
these different all these different organizations, or like Iran wants them gone, and Hezbollah wants them gone, and there's all these oh Hamas and one of the things that Israel likes to do, they've infiltrated Hamas with Mossad. They're this is what they do. They've infiltrated Hamas. They've infiltrated Hezbollah. And anytime they want to go out and use their bombs, they'll get Hamas to shoot off a bunch of rockets that don't really hit anything. But then it gives them an excuse to go in there and kill people, right? It's one of their little things that they do, and this goes back many thousands of years, well, hundreds at least. And we're going to go back to the Middle Ages, right? It's going to be very controversial, but this is the root of game theory in a lot of ways. It's a very prime example of game theory. There's this empire in Ukraine called the Khazarian Empire.
Oh,
Right?
no, you didn't. You didn't go there. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go
In
ahead.
Ukraine, this is in the Middle Ages, right? In the Middle Ages, the Christians, the Crusaders, were infiltrating the Holy Land, right? And they were fighting the Muslims who had control of Palestine at the time. The Muslims were in control of the Holy Land, and the Christians were going there in the crusade, right? Sent by the Catholic Church to go and pillage and take the Holy Land back, right? Which is where the Templars went in and they discovered all this treasure in Solomon's temple. They excavated it all and brought it back to Europe. And then the Templars ended up becoming very powerful because they found knowledge there. But that's another story. So we had the Christians and the Muslims fighting each other in the
Right,
Crusades.
right.
And at the time, which people don't know this because the Jews and the Muslims now are such bitter enemies, but this is before they had put the state of Israel in the middle of the Islamic world, right? So the Jews at this time had a benevolent relationship with the Muslims and the Christians, right? So the Jews got along with both sides of the crusade, right? And the Khazars, who were very strategic, they saw this, right? They saw that the Jews were able to trade with both sides. So they
Hmm.
said, we want to trade with both sides and benefit from trading and making money off of both sides of this conflict. So what the
Right.
Khazars did is the entire Khazarian Empire converted to Judaism, right? This people don't know this shit because this is very, very hidden
Yes.
secret
Yeah.
knowledge, right? Like people don't know this shit because it's been hidden to history because there's something behind this truth that people don't want you to know. So the Khazarian Empire converted completely to Judaism,
Yeah.
and these are whites, right? These are not Hebrews. These are not biblical Hebrews, right? The biblical Hebrews, if you guys study the Bible, the Hebrews of old times, right, were very closely related to the Arabs, right, because they had the same line through Abraham. There's Isaac and Esau, or Jacob and Esau, right? It was Isaac's children, in which Isaac was Abraham's son, right? So this bloodline goes all the way back to Abraham. Both sides, Jews and Hebrew and Muslims, Jews and Arabs, come from the same line. They're very closely related genetically. So the story of Isaac is, he was going to give his blessing to the line to whichever to one of the two brothers, right, for his blessing of his bloodline, and he wanted Esau, but his wife Rachel, I think was her name. Don't quote me on that name. She loved Jacob and wanted him to be blessed, and Esau had hairy palms, right? And this is a famous Bible story, and this is kind of a diversion, but it's going to set the stage for what I'm going to tell you guys. So Jacob wore like fake hairy palms, right? And because at this time Isaac was blind, he could barely see, and so Isaac's wife tricked him into blessing Jacob instead of Esau, right? The Esau's bloodline ended up becoming the Arabs. Jacob's bloodline became the Jews, right? And this is biblical genealogy. So think about this for a minute before I go on. The Arabs and the Jews are closely genetically related. In the Bible, it talks about Gentiles, which are the whites, right? Okay, back to Khazaria. The whites of Khazaria converted to Judaism in order to play both sides of the Crusades, right? Fast forward in history, this was during the Middle Ages. This Khazarian bloodline infiltrated Europe, started as Jews, right? The Jews. And this is why nowadays
I believe they're called Ashkenazi
Ashkenazi,
Jews.
Ashkenazi, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. They're Ashkenazis, but this is why you can't differentiate now. People think Jews and they see people in Hollywood, they look white, right? They don't look like Arabs. So let's put two and two together here. And you go back to the Rothschilds, the banking dynasty of Europe.
Damn it. We
Rothschild,
just hit too much truth.
Rothschild is Red Shield, right? In German. It wasn't his original name. He changed it to Rothschild, and he used the Seal of Solomon, which is the um, Star of David, as his seal because he was Khazarian Jewish. Right? He's white. This is where the entire banking dynasty of the Jews control the money came from. They weren't biblical Jews, they weren't Hebrews, right? And who created the state of Israel? Who signed the Balfour Declaration that allowed them to put a Jewish homeland in Israel and take control of Palestine from the English? Rothschild. They're putting two together. I'm not going to come out and say it, but anyway, so the state of Israel loves game warfare because this goes back to the Khazarian times of playing both sides of the Crusades, right? And this fast forward to now, the people who run Israel, game theory is in their blood. They've been doing it for a long time.
A millennium.
And so this is part of the subterfuge of by deception we shall do war. And this is locked into the entire function of the matrix. You want to call it the matrix, right? The entire function of the concealment of knowledge, the concealment of information, and to get you to play checkers while they're playing chess, because these are truths that most of you don't know, but it's
Right.
pretty readily
Because
available there for you to find.
if you did know the truth, they wouldn't be able to play you against another side. Because then what happens is you have what's called collaborative and non-collaborative games, right? So there was this thing that I was watching, and I'll be sure to pass it along. There was this thing called "What does life teach us? What does game theory teach us about life?" Right? And now there's this, and I'm not going to be able to solve because I don't remember all the details. I just know the concept or the gist of this story, which is there was this competition created once upon a time. I don't remember what year, so don't quote me. But it was someone that created. They said they wanted to create a competition for people to create game theory games with different parameters to see which ones would win. And so like there would be ones where like they were cooperative and then they were defect. So to see like, you know, um at different stages, right? So the first one was, and then they gave them a set of games, like over 200 games, and said, okay, over 200 games, let's see which game theoretic principle actually gives us the best result. Now, what's really interesting about this experiment was that what they found was that, in life they say that nice guys finish last, but and you guys are gonna have to watch the video to understand why that's not true, why nice guys finish first in game theoretic principles. And that is because when you're dealing with games aren't solo games. Like you're not playing against yourself, unfortunately. Like even though your game of life you're playing yourself, but the game of life that you're playing with yourself, you're playing it against other people in the same space. So what I mean by that is that um you have to at some point collaborate, right? Because you can't do it all alone, right? There's not a even Jesus had 12 disciples, right? Even he needed 12 people. So like What I mean by that is like we have to collaborate at some point, and you can't have a collaborative society if at some point someone defects, because that defection is going to cause a, a friction in the harmony of the homeostasis, where we're now someone else has an upper hand because they defected. So how does the game regulate itself? Right now, you need self-regulation. So this games these different game principles, what they figured out was that there's one game principle, and I'm going to skip all the ones that didn't work because that's irrelevant. The one that did work was tit for tat. And what that one said was that I'm going to basically mirror you. So if you cooperate, I cooperate. If you defect, I defect. But if you decide to go back to cooperation, I go back to cooperation. I just mirror you. And if you follow this like dynamic back and forth, you realize that that's the ultimate collaborative tool, is just to be the ultimate mirror. And you realize that like if if you if you allow any other dynamic to operate, it distorts the dynamic of the homeostasis, right? There's no yin and yang. But if you keep it as simple as just I mirror you, now you're able, yes, yin and yang. Now you're able to create balance. So what happens is over time, they realize that if they set the 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 term 200 games, by the time you got, well, there's no more. So if you further and you're going to defect, well, then I may as well defect the second to last game. So I may as well defect the 198th game. But if then I realize that you're going to defect the 198th game, I may as well defect the 197th game. And then you follow all the way back to the very first game. So then it doesn't work. So what you realize is that if you set an unlimited number of games where like you don't know where the game ends, you have this perpetual back and forth of just collaboration that never ends. And that is how you create a system where we all win.
Well, fuck. Alex is making too much sense again. Bro, these connections, man, we got to figure something out with this shit. Because, yeah, you keep getting the lightning bolted, and it's fucking pissing me off.
You know what's interesting is that that happened while you were talking, and we were talking, and I was talking about uh everything that we talked about, the most side stuff. Like that happened to you too. It was like, oh, you're speaking too much truth. Boom, there it goes.
Well, hopefully, all that stuff got recorded. We'll see in post. But back to what Alex was saying about yin and yang. Check out my brand new painting. So, a lot of the principles we're talking about is kind of in here. It's about balance, right? We've got the four elements here on the outside. We got air, fire, earth, earth and water, right? And then we got the yin and yang, the Sri Yantra, where the triangles come together. These are symbols of these principles, right? And these are ancient symbols. I don't just make these symbols up, right? It's ancient knowledge. This is ancient wisdom that is
Dude,
infused
you're
in my art.
stepping up your game. You're stepping up your game on your artwork, bro. It looks fucking great.
Bro, that one's insane.
Yeah.
I've been getting really emotional on my art when I finish it because I've kind of detailed with you guys before how my process works. Is I start with a premise and then I kind of just let the energy flow. And this one right here, dude, is it's super powerful. Like sitting in the presence of this thing is like a sacred experience because this is an ancient sacred symbol, and the ideas behind it, it's really a reflection of where I'm at spiritually. When I finished it, it was kind of like my great work, right? It was like I looked at it and I reflected on myself and my journey and how long, I've only been painting for a little over a year. And it was kind of something I came to synchronistically or like intuitively of just to start. Something told me to start painting. I'm not a good artist at all. Like I could never draw as a kid. It was something I was always really good at, but art was the one subject where I was just scared. I can't draw. I can't draw. I don't have a good freehand. But with the tools of sacred geometry, man, I'm putting together some quite exquisite pieces of art that are really next level, and I can't really take credit because I feel like it's just a divine energy that I open myself to and allow to create. And when I get finished, sometimes like this other one I made, which is kind of relevant to what we're talking about. I made this for my mom for Christmas. I just finished it yesterday. This is the Shield of Saint Michael, Clypeus San Clypeus Sancti Michaelis in Latin. And it was I put an inscription on it in Latin: "Nolite timere anxietas es oratio diaboli," and that "fear not." Translates into "fear not," and worry is a prayer to the devil. And I made it for my mom because my mom's a big time worrier. She worries about my sister pretty specifically because my sister is just her life is kind of chaotically uh it's just bad. Um but my sister always calls my mom, just dumps all this fucking negative energy on her. My mom is always worrying about her, and I'm trying to get my mom to understand the principles of the law of attraction, which is part of the game, right? Part of the game is there's rules to this game, and they don't want us to know the rules to the game, and one of them is the law of attraction. And you go into different scriptures, different not ideologies, but different traditions, oral traditions, and different scriptures of different cultures, and they're all talking about the rules of the game. And they boil it down to like the law of attraction, the law of correspondence, as above, so below, like all these different hermetic laws that are described
Yeah.
in Hermeticism are encoded in all these different things. And one of them is the law of attraction. And, I put fear not,
You know,
worry is a prayer to the devil, because worry is a
because
prayer to the devil. It's putting energy into something you don't want to worry. And
Can I tell you that I was writing a book? I started writing a book earlier this year around June. Actually, it's on the very thing. There's about anywhere from like 100 to 105 basic universal laws that like those are laws that fall into that. Now, I did smoke a little bit of pot, so I'm forgetful right now, but um but there's about 100 universal laws that all apply to the nature of your reality and your experience in this matrix, and that helps you kind of like rig the game in your favor, if you want to call it that.
yeah,
Like that's kind of like that's how I want to rig the game in, at least to help it make it fall more in alignment with. So one of the things that people don't tell you about game theory is and when you talk about alchemy and spirituality, is that game theory has boundaries too in universal law, and that is like if you're in alignment with your life's purpose and your path, like game theory doesn't apply to you, and it's really hard concept to wrap your head around, because if you're doing your divine purpose, like there is a supernatural protection around that, which um uh I know it's a little bit advanced topics for people that aren't on the Innerstanding yet. When you're walking that higher path and you're walking your divine purpose, like there's certain protections that come with that. And so like yes, you might be playing games that are not necessarily designed, they're not designed for you to win, but because you're in your soul path and your purpose, like even those games that you quote unquote lose will somehow elevate you to the next step, because there was a lesson that was needed to be learned there. You lost that game you played, but it wasn't necessarily a game that you played for your benefit. You played for the benefit of someone else's understanding a lesson in life, which is very deep for some people to understand right now. And I apologize if I lose you on that, but this is
I mean,
we are talking about alchemy and spirituality.
this is what we're doing. with this podcast is giving you this knowledge of how to play chess instead of checkers. And that's how to win the game. This is a game. This is if you really want to boil it down, this is a biological computer program that the creator created to evolve consciousness. And keeping you from understanding how to evolve is part of the game theory, right? There's a shadowy element that doesn't like getting its hands dirty, that plays energies off of each other in order to keep them from realizing that they are actually one. That's the game. That's the game. Is there is a shadow. The light casts a shadow, by the way. You really want to understand this thing. That's how God's evolving consciousness is. He knows the games of the shadow because the shadow needs his energy in order to play. But the shadow doesn't like to expose itself. That's why it's the shadow, right? That's why it's the octopus with its tentacles in the background, right? It doesn't like to have the light shined on it. It's casted by the light, but there's something in the way that casts the shadow, right? But the shadow plays in the shadows and casts and causes energy to fight against itself. It's God's energy fighting against itself and getting it. Separation is the game. It's the game that they're playing on you. It's this concept of ego and separation. It's getting you to focus on ego and not realize that you're fighting yourself, whether that be internally or externally. Get you to fight yourself and identify with the ego, which is this illusion.
Yep.
That you are
the meat sack.
The meat sack. Get you to identify with this and not look in your neighbor's eyes and see that it's you. Make that connection. To not look yourself in the mirror and see that ding. That's the game. That's game theory. Is to get you to the game of separation. God is playing a game of separation, and the winners of the game are the ones who wake up out of that and see that it's all that you're me and I'm you. It's really that simple. It sounds like improbable on people.
It's so complicated. It's so simple that it's complicated.
That's exactly the trick. Is that the truth is so simple that it seems like there's no way it could be that simple. But it's a very elaborate game played around this simple truth. And yeah, some of the stuff we talk about, and this is a perfect way to kind of sum up the whole season, is like so the stuff we're talking about can be interpreted as next level knowledge. But when you break it down, it's really not that next level. It's really simple. It's just about getting
elementary.
It's very elementary, but the complicated part is coming to the place internally where you realize that you aren't real, that your ego is playing a game with you. Your ego is actually an element of the shadow. And the whole purpose of the shadow is to maintain this illusion. So the ego is going to defer to the shadow, right? Anything that the shadow wants to perpetuate, the ego is going to identify with that because it allows it to exist. The shadow matrix coddles the ego, right? So the ego wants the shadow. So it doesn't want the freedom of the light. It doesn't want that light of truth. And this is, something. That's another quote I want to read. This is a really good one that's kind of relevant to what we're talking about. But this is the resistance you're going to face as you're on this path. Is you're going to face it from people around you, and you're going to face it from yourself. But I'll read this real quick. We're almost out of time on part one, but that's a good way to end it. In the realm of the occult, those who are adept and highly trained possess a magnetic charm that sets them apart. Their presence exudes an enigmatic energy that can be both alluring and unsettling, particularly to those unacquainted with the intensity of psychic forces. An adept occultist, especially one of elevated rank, radiates a compelling aura that draws others towards them. Their mastery over esoteric knowledge and spiritual practices imbues them with a sense of authority and charisma that commands attention. However, this magnetic personality can prove disconcerting to individuals unprepared for the potent energies they wield. In the company of a skilled practitioner, individuals primed for spiritual growth may find themselves rapidly ascending to new levels of consciousness. The atmosphere cultivated by a high grade initiate serves as a catalyst for personal development, facilitating profound transformations and insights. Conversely, those ill prepared for such encounters may experience a sense of unease or agitation in the presence of an adept occultist. The heightened psychic vibrations emanating from the practitioner can unsettle the uninitiated, stirring dormant fears and anxieties within them.
Absolutely. Those that uninitiated, bro, for the occultists that walk into the room, it's like a trigger. Like you don't even have to speak a word, but trust me, your presence is known. It's just the way it is.
Do we make you
Perfect spot.
unsettled? Do we make you unsettled? Good. We're doing our fucking job. See you in part two. Are you tired of these lo-fi brands that use sweatshop labor that everybody wears? You looking for a t-shirt brand that's going to set you apart from all the normies? Well, it's time to ascend to another level of style with Alchemystic Apparel. Everyone in the fifth dimension is talking about it. Christ himself has his own shirt. He's the Lion of Judah. The devil himself wants to get in on the action, but he can't have one. You know why? Because I took his head and I put it on a shirt. I know what you're thinking. Mr. Alchemistic, I'm not a devastatingly handsome middle-aged man. I don't know if Alchemistic Apparel is for me. Don't be delulu like Lulu. Alchemistic Apparel is for everybody. Get lucky with the four-leaf friends. Get Egyptian with Osiris. Got a bunch of haters? Pull a death card on them. Your mom is gonna love Mystic Pyramid. Heck, even dogs love Alchemistic Apparel. It's time to step out of three-dimensional clothing and step in to Alchemistic Apparel. The link is in my bio. And we are back for this season finale. Fear not. It's all a game. It is all just a game. And me and Alex were just talking about, he sent me this thing about the Native American tradition, the Heyoka empath, and the characteristics there. And then I have this other quote about alchemists, the alchemist journey. And then we talked about the Kabbalah and the 10 Sephiroth and the 22 paths, the 32 paths of wisdom from the Tree of Life. And what we're trying to do with this podcast, just to sum up the whole season and all the information we're bringing you and everything, it's the Rumi quote. The truth was a mirror in the hands of God, and it fell and shattered. And everybody took a piece and thought they had the truth. And to sum up this season, we're trying to we're taking these pieces of glass from these different cultures, these different traditions, and we're putting this glass back together and showing you. It's not just, oh, that's a Native American teaching. That's a Buddhist teaching. That's a Hindu teaching. That's an alchemist teaching. It's like, no, this is human knowledge. And they all had a piece of the mirror. And they're all essentially saying a lot of the same things. And Alex, do you want to read through the Heyoka Empath document you sent me?
Yeah,
I've actually got it right here. If you want me to just go through it real quick.
yeah. I mean, you can go for it. Yeah. Oh shit! I think I just closed it. Damn it! Did I lose you? No, I didn't.
It's all good. I got it open on Telegram here. So, a Heyoka empath is considered the most powerful type of empath in spiritual and Native American traditions. Here are key traits and characteristics often associated.
Before you complete that, the reason I sent that to you now is because right before we closed out part one, and do you still have that thing that you're talking about before? And the very last thing you were saying in part one about the occultist and how the occultist will trigger the uninitiated, right?
Yes,
So
I got it right here.
right. So basically that whole thing, like that triggered me to think of, oh, the Heyoka, right? Because like I was reading through this list and I'm like, okay, uh I don't I don't consider myself being a cultist, but if I start reading off like all these different things and you start checking off the boxes, like by definition, I would be considered an occultist, right? So I go into this list and I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, especially with what he was just saying about how the uninitiated basically start feeling some sort of way, and this is why the initiated are dealt or faced with a lot of opposition and a lot of naysayers and a lot of negativity because they're misunderstood. So the Heyoka actually I guess stumbled, if you want to call it by coincidence, if we even believe in coincidences anymore. This kind of I fell upon this information and I just sent it over to B because I don't have my computer set up. So yeah, if you don't mind going through that list, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So to your point, like this is kind of how I feel with my social media, right? Because I'm sharing, I am my authentic self 100%. I share so much stuff of just that I come across. I share it, things I create, I share it, and just knowledge. Like I have downloads where I'm just sitting and I just have this thing that okay, I want to talk about this, and I'll film it and I'll share it. And it'll get one or two likes, and but then I look at my stories that I also share a lot of my stuff to my stories, and I've got all the same people the same two or three dozen people are looking at all my stories, but none of them comment, none of them like. They're just all watching. They're monitoring what I'm saying and what I'm doing. So it's either resonating with them or they're fucking hate watching me. Which I welcome you anyway. If you're watching this, I welcome you to watch my stuff. I hope it's resonating with you. I hope that you're seeing that I have my finger on the pulse of something. And I think there's a lot of people monitoring my progress through life because they want to see where it goes, right? I think a lot of people either think I'm crazy or they think that I'm onto something. I think that's the two groups of
Or
people.
both.
But the reason I shared that quote about the occultist, right? And you said you don't think consider yourself an occultist, but I think that's because of we've been conditioned with this um, stereotype of an occultist. Oh, he's a guy that goes in the dark in the woods with a hood on and it lights fires and it's like a dark occultist. Like we're on the white path, which I
Alchemist,
detailed. We're
alchemist,
the
alchemist,
alchemist
not
path.
occultist.
We
Yes.
aren't sorcerers trying to conjure demons and all this stuff and try to do black magic to make our wallet fat. Like we're doing the white path, which is divine work, which is occult because it's hidden. Occult means hidden. That's all it means. It doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean magic. But if you really, it's conscious energetics.
It's
I don't want to
implied. It's implied.
it's conscious energetics. It's not, I mean, it's not the biblical sorcery definition of magic, right? We're not doing spells. We're doing energy work. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah, true.
it's conscious energetics. It's being
Yeah.
conscious and intentional with our energy and putting it towards a divine purpose. And this is what you said, when you're in a divine purpose, you're outside the game. We're not stuck in the matrix. We're not stuck in this game theory of fighting energies against each other. Like we're outside of this. We've stepped outside of the game and defeated the game in a lot of ways because we see through it. We see through the fucking okey doke of fear of love, of fear and love. Right? We've chosen love. We've stepped out of fear.
But some would
And when you
call that the path least traveled.
and when you do that, you have a tendency to trigger people. Like I know that I trigger people. I know I do it on purpose because I'm trying to trigger that thing inside of you. I'm trying to shine my light. See, trying to shine this into you to trigger the shadow. The shadow is going to be like, ah, fuck this guy. This guy knows what he's talking about. But then there's that light side of you that's like, wait a minute, what is he saying? Let me lean a little closer and listen to what he says. And I hope I'm triggering you. I hope I trigger the fuck out of you. Because that's my job. Because I found within myself the truth of who I am and what I'm here to do, my divine path, and I'm walking it. And that triggers people because a lot of people are lost in this separation game, playing checkers while
But
the
I'm
world's
different.
playing chess. And let's read through this Heyoka Empath document
Yeah.
real quick. The sacred mirror, which Alex talked about, mirroring. is the way to win the game. It's the way to collaborate. They reflect others' emotions and behaviors, often triggering personal growth and introspection. Highly intuitive, they sense emotions deeply, even if others are unaware of them. Unconventional thinkers, they think outside the box and challenge societal norms. Truth tellers, known for their honesty, even when their words are uncomfortable or confrontational. Humor and irony, they often use humor, satire, or irony as tools for teaching and healing. Energy healers, they can transmute negative energy into positive energy. Emotional healers, their presence encourages others to face unresolved emotional issues. Oh, this is ticking all the boxes, brother. Sounds like an alchemist.
Sounds like
Um,
an
Misunderstood, their directness and intensity can be intimidating or misunderstood. Spiritual guides, they often become spiritual mentors or guides due to their wisdom and insight. Intense life experiences, they undergo challenging life experiences that shape their empathic gifts. Ooh, brother, that's a big check on that one for both of us. In their
right.
transformation, continuous personal growth and self reflection are part of their spiritual journey. So, a Heyoka empath is an alchemist, 100%. It's a crossover. These things cross over, and so now I'm going to read for you the symbolism behind the 7 steps of the great work, which is I don't know if you could see it, but this
No,
picture right
I
here.
blanked out.
Hold on.
I just see a picture.
So the picture here
Oh,
is
okay, yeah, I see.
the 7 step temple, right? It's a
Yeah.
symbolic work of alchemical art. It symbolizes the path of the alchemists, the 7 steps of the great work, which is to find the philosopher's stone, which is up here on my wall, the philosopher's stone that I created, this painting. Um, this is this is part of the great work is to find the philosopher's stone. The symbolism behind the 7 steps of the great work, depicted by the 6 steps along with the upper temple, is profound and laden with meaning in the realm of alchemy. Each stage represents a crucial aspect of the journey embarked upon by the disciple in pursuit of unraveling the mystery of their existence. 1. Fragmentation. Step 1. This is
There's that mirror.
the initial step involves breaking down the existing structures, beliefs, and perceptions that confine one's understanding, allowing for a fresh perspective to emerge. This is doing away with the conditioning of ideologies of society, the part of the separation game. Fragmentation, breaking it down, step 1. Liquefaction, step 2. As old paradigms dissolve, there's a fluidity that permeates the consciousness, enabling the individual to adapt and flow with the currents of change. 3. Fermentation. This stage signifies the process of transformation and refinement, where the raw materials of the self undergo a fermentative process, fostering growth and evolution. 4. Corruption. In confronting the shadows, and
There's that
darker
word.
aspects of oneself, there's an acknowledgement and acceptance of imperfections, leading to a deeper integration of the whole. 5. Putrefaction. Within the decay lies the potential for regeneration. Through the breakdown of the old, fertile ground is prepared for new growth and vitality to emerge. 6. Volatilization. Liberation from the constraints of the material realm occurs as the spirit ascends and transcends earthly limitations, attaining a state of heightened awareness and enlightenment. 7. Ignition. The culmination of the alchemical journey is marked by the ignition of the inner fire, symbolized by the formation of sulfur fire or white sulfur. It represents the union of opposites, the alchemical marriage between the sun and the moon, bringing forth the ultimate realization of the self and the revelation of one's true nature.
Hmm. Right there in the middle.
Ding. I call this piece divine union, right?
Nice.
Divine union, union with the divine. And I also called it solve et coagula, which is a Latin phrase that sums up the alchemical journey. Solve et coagula means dissolve and coagulate, dissolve and rebuild, right? That is the alchemical work. Dissolve the ego, the self, which I just outlined in
Ego.
those 7 steps. The 7 steps to rebuild into divine union, into oneness. You see the triangles coming together in the middle, the yin and yang of oneness, the elements coming together. It's all inclusive in the symbolism of this piece. That's why I was moved to like emotion when I finished this, because it was a reflection of me. This is a reflection of my journey. This is the
So what
stage.
happened?
This is stage 7 right here. This is where I'm at. This is the completion of the great work. And
What happens after you start going down this road for long enough? I think it's safe to say that your life becomes a constant breaking down and rebuilding. Now, the more that you break down and rebuild, the less you have to break down and rebuild in real time, if that makes any sense, right? Because you have to break down old ideas and old concepts and an old version of you to rebuild. And I'm talking about like a lot of old versions of you, right? Because if you haven't done that work yet, like
well,
it's gonna be a
the work continues until we die, until this
yeah,
mortal coil, this
yeah,
bag of bones, this meat sack, until this thing dies, until it goes away. It's a constant process. And
yeah.
initially, the 7 steps I outlined, it is a constant returning cycle. Like ascensions, this is the ascension process of spiritual evolution. It never stops. But the first 7, they say you go through 7 ascensions, right? Like the first ascension is the hardest because it's like literally you're treading new ground. You've never gone through this process before. You're literally breaking down every element of yourself. And this is something that happened to me it's almost 2 years ago now, through this whole twin flame or whatever you want to call it, this triggering point, this catalyst, this catalytic event that I had that literally shattered me, broke me into a billion pieces, and emotionally, it just wiped me out, and I had to rebuild from there. And this is initially the first part of the process was just I was faced with a breaking down of everything that I believed about myself and about life and about the world and about everything. I had to rebuild everything from scratch, and I went through that entire process. And you reach a part where you think you're done. You're like, all right, I made it, and then it's like, here comes another mountain that you got to
Yeah.
climb.
It
Right? I
never
was like,
fails. It never
it
fails.
never ends. The mountain is life. The journey is life. And this is why these symbolic works like the tree of life, the tarot, it's so significant, right? Because the fool's journey starts at 0, right? And you go up to the world, which is 21. You complete the cycle, but then it starts over at 0 again. Every
That's why you have a phoenix, because the phoenix constantly matures and then it burns up, turns into ashes, and then rises again.
yeah, it keeps going. And it's like, but this is the process that God has given us to evolve consciousness, is to keep going. You just keep going. And once you've gone through the process, you start to recognize it. All right, I'm going through another one. And then it's like the first step of the temple is very steep, right? It takes a long time to get to that first the where you have your first plateau. Oh, I made it. And then here comes the next step, but it's not as steep. And then gradually you just go through them quick because you're like, you recognize, okay, this is another layer of the onion that I'm going through of myself. This is another thing I have to overcome. It's another obstacle. And it gets less and less steep. But if most people see that first incline of self improvement that they have to make, and they go, fuck that, I'm going to stay down here. And this is the game. This is the game, is to keep you from ever taking that first initial, very, very difficult rebirth of retooling your entire existence and finding who you really are. And that's the uncomfortable growth we've talked about. That's the uncomfortable, God giving you the path of uncomfortable growth or comfort, right? You keep choosing that comfort, you're going to come
The
to a
path,
place on your journey
the
where you
path least
need,
traveled.
yeah, you're going to come to that point. If you keep choosing comfort, I guarantee you, you're going to come to a point in your journey where you need this type of spiritual exercise, right? You need this growth to get past an obstacle. And if you keep choosing comfort, when you reach that point, it could end in destruction. Like, I'm not saying you're going to die, but like you're going to be stuck
You could.
until
You very
until
well could, because you're choosing not to grow. So the source might be like, you know what, you want to not grow? It's time to
yeah,
go.
that's the end of this one.
Yep.
And we'll give you a life as a caterpillar and let you go through the symbolic butterfly, and then maybe we'll give you another shot at being a human, you know. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy, we'd all be expert chess players and see through these illusions, and these illusions wouldn't have been perpetuated for millennia, right? Like, but this is essential for understanding. Like, this is something we've talked about throughout this entire podcast, right? This shift in consciousness is coming. Yeah, you see it in the reflected in
Already here. It's already
yeah,
here.
you see it reflected in the design with going into the age of Aquarius, the design of the game, right? We're in a cycle, going in cycles, a circle going in
In circles,
circles.
in cycles.
It's all cycles, everything cycles, and the universe, the cosmos, is going through a cycle up, going to the age of Aquarius. You know, it's a reflection, as above, so below, the law of correspondence, as above, so below. We're all feeling this shift. It's coming, it's happening, we're in the middle of it. We're literally knee deep in it at this point. And we're trying to guide you guys along because you're part of us. You're us too. You know, yeah, you're just possibly a less informed version. And we're trying to give you the information you need to help the consciousness evolve. Um, and the uncomfortable growth is necessary, and it's liberating and freeing when you get to that first plateau because you're equipped with the tools to get to that next stage. And just know that it's just a ride. It's a
Yep.
ride. We're on a ride, right? And I'm going to put a quote at the end of the episode of Bill Hicks talking about this concept, that it's just a ride. And, you know, we keep falling for the okey doke of the separation, of fighting amongst each other about ideologies and things that don't matter, and getting caught up in stuff like the drone stuff. You know, oh God, what do the drones mean? Oh, I'm
But
afraid. Oh,
wait till the UFOs come out, guys. What are you gonna do then?
yeah. I think that's the final card that the Matrix is going to try to play is um is
Alien
the
invasion.
the entities that have been here all along, steering
Right.
this whole, basically the architects that are playing, the architects of the Matrix are going to come out from behind the curtain and say, oh, we're aliens here to help you, or whatever illusion it's going to be when the aliens finally reveal themselves. But just know that like these entities have been here all along. You see it in these old scriptures, the Book of Enoch, the Anunnaki from the Sumerian text, the
The art one.
Nephilim, the
The
Nephilim.
art.
These things have been here, guys. Don't fall for that okey doke. Like, it's just that's the final card, though. When the aliens finally reveal themselves, just know that we're almost at the end of the game, and that the final boss is making is peeking his head out, and that's how you know. Um, but don't fall for that okey doke because it's pretty elementary. At this point, Alex and I see the moves coming, and don't fall for the fear. Don't fall for the fear. Fear not. Worry is a prayer to the devil. Don't pray to the devil with your worry and your fear, and give it your energy. That's how the devil, the shadow, gets
Yeah.
the energy of the creator, is from
That's
you.
that's its
You
primary source of energy is your fear.
you are the resource that powers the illusion. You are the resource that powers the shadow, because the shadow can't get it from the light directly. It needs to go through what's casting the shadow. What is the light shining on? It's shining on you, and you cast the shadow. That is literally how it works. And the shadow is pulling energy that the light is casting into you, pulling your energy That's how it works.
I
That's
wish
how
we
the
can get.
game.
I wish we could do like an animation of like what you just did right there. That'd be badass
That's how the game entirely works. It's
one of
literally
these days.
the tricks of the devil. Is the shadow is coming from you. You're powering it. And once you decide to look at behind you at your shadow like Peter Pan, right, and acknowledge it and know it's there, then you've won the game.
Well, so let's talk about the game theoretic stuff, right? Which now we've got uh we've got collaborative, we've got non-collaborative, you got zero sum, you have non-zero sum, right? So like what games like it's this is a tough one because I guess every situation demands a different game set of rules, or I should say a set of rules for the game. And the way that I'm interpreting this now, we bring it back to like what's possible. Um I gotta read something here real quick because uh there was actually a question, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this real quick. I'm probably gonna like blank out. No, maybe not.
Just
I asked AI like about the game theory stuff, and then it said to me, did I want to find ways to uh I wanted to find ways to create or to talk about um I guess you could say uh fair fair games, right? So here it goes. So it said here you go. Key game theories for equity design, right? So it asked me if I would like to explore how game theory could be used to design a more equitable financial system. So it says here game theory can be applied to create a more equitable financial system by designing rules and incentives that encourage fairness, reduce exploitation, and promote cooperation. The key is structuring games in which all participants, governments, corporations, and individuals are incentivized to act in ways that benefit the entire system, not just the wealthiest players. Now, the reason I bring this up is because if you look around at the current system, like our system is not designed in this way. All right. Our current system is most definitely not designed to help out the majority of the people. It says here key game theory concepts for equity design, cooperative games encourage collaboration rather than competition. Where in what industry do you see collaboration rather than competition? I mean, everything is, you see sports, right? All sports has opponents, right? Everyone has an opposing side. No, there's no sport where everyone has the same opponent, which is something else other than other people, right? Imagine if we came up with a sport that did that. Imagine that. So, an example of this would be profit sharing models where companies reward employees proportionally based on collective success. Cool. So, Nash equilibrium. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Nash equilibrium, but design policies where no player can improve their outcome by acting selfishly if others follow the rules. So, example being taxation policies that prevent tax evasion while encouraging investment in the economy. There's something called Pareto efficiency. Design outcomes where no one can be made better off without making someone else worse off. Example, universal healthcare could be structured to ensure basic needs are met while allowing for premium services. This is what I was talking about earlier, zero sum versus non-zero sum games. Shifting from zero sum systems where one person's gain is another one's loss to non-zero sum systems where we can all benefit. An example of this is cooperative lending platforms like credit unions where community savings direct fund community projects. So here's something interesting. Game theoretic solutions for financial equity. Income redistribution with dynamic taxation. Mechanism of progressive tax system where rates adjust automatically based on wealth distribution, ensuring a fair balance. So there are game theory insights to use incentive compatibility so people are motivated to report income honestly while still striving for success. Here's something that really like not surprised, decentralized finance. Oh, and blockchain-based economies. Here. Mechanism, transparent decentralized platforms eliminate middlemen, reducing exploitation in lending, banking, and transactions. Game theory insight is trustless systems based on smart contracts that can enforce fair play without centralized control. Here's one that we've talked about a little bit: universal basic income with behavioral incentives. You know, there's something called universal basic rewards, which is kind of like my respin or yeah, I guess you could say a respin or fork of the universal basic income. And so the mechanism here says to provide a guaranteed income to all, reducing inequality and boosting demand in the economy. Game theory insights is to put public goods game shows how a baseline income can encourage cooperation and economic participation. So by that basically saying that we have to create a way for everyone to get paid. Now, behavioral incentives would be something along the lines of like, well, depending on how much you cooperate and how much value you produce, then you get an exponent on that value that you generate. But everyone essentially generates value because we all participate in the exchange of data. And I know this is going to go over some of you guys' heads. We may have to go back over this stuff, later, but I have two more points I want to go over. It says here, equitable profit sharing in corporations. So legally mandating profit sharing with employees and communities where business operates so that this way, like employees of companies actually have stake in the companies that they work for. I don't know. That seems pretty fair to me. Democratizing financial data, creating data cooperatives where individuals own and sell their data collectively. What did I say about you guys about you guys being the value and about your data being mined, for these big companies? They talk about cooperative platforms, social wealth funds, blockchain voting and governance. I mean, these are all things that if you guys are new to this podcast, you guys haven't been watching, we talk about this stuff in other episodes, which talks about, some of the technology and some of the stuff that we're working on to try and bring to you as the audience. Like, we're just setting the stage right now, guys. This is the end of 2024. This is the last episode in season one. I think it's going to be either the last or the second to last. And very well might be the last season you guys see fully on YouTube, because come next year, I fully intend on having our podcast on our network, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we make that a realization come January, which is only a couple weeks away, which means I have a lot of work to do. But these are all things that we've talked about, and
Honestly,
we're not.
that whole list, like the quantum ecosystem ticks most of those boxes, right? Like these are the equitable solutions that we're trying to bring through sharing this knowledge. First of all, we're trying to share this knowledge to give you guys a gateway into the future, which is what Alex and I are going to be the architects of, right? Like this is why we're setting the stage for this, because don't be surprised when Alex and I come out with a lot of pretty wild stuff that's going to blow a lot of people's minds, because we're putting in the work. We're doing the divine work to make to align with the shift of consciousness, also with technology, right? We're trying to shift humanity's consciousness to align with the things that we're going to try to bring to make a more equitable system out of this shift in consciousness. It's about aligning people with the understanding for what we're doing, the understanding of what this place really is, the understanding that we cast the shadow, and that to acknowledge the shadow and see it, and to play chess instead of checkers. Stop playing checkers. Like, it's really just committing yourself to understanding that this is the way we've done it, but we're not going to do it that way anymore.
I
We're
would like to call it Innerstanding. And I know that there's actually a channel called Innerstanding, but you guys should definitely watch that channel too. But Innerstanding, because like yes, all the understanding, but it's got to come from inside, because you'll never understand outside if you don't understand inside. And that's just my take.
here. I want to read one more quote. We're almost out of time. Do you want to do another part, or you just want to sum it up?
We could probably sum it up. This has been a very powerful one, and I think
I think that's a
we've
good
driven.
place to leave it. But I got one
Yeah,
more quote for you guys before we leave,
love
and
it.
then I'm gonna leave you with the Bill Hicks at the very end of the episode, so you guys can realize, fear not, it's just a ride. It's just a game. But it takes your participation, and the quantum ecosystem is going to reward participation and equity and bring equity to a game that's been rigged against us. And so here's a quote from Omram Mikhail Ivanov, Daily Meditations. Human beings have a tendency to want to obtain everything without being prepared, and this tendency is the cause of many anomalies and catastrophes in the world. Spiritual people are no exception to the rule. They want to begin with what should come only at the end, the acquisition of occult powers. They have not purified themselves, but they are eager to know the greatest secrets in order to use them for their own gain. They will be crushed by these great secrets, which they will not be able to bear, yet they do not see the danger. It is boring to educate, purify, and control oneself. So they want the means to obtain everything they crave right away. And there you have candidates for the Black Lodge. Talked about that. Why do people want everything before they have prepared? Preparation takes a very long time. It can last a whole lifetime, if not several lifetimes. But once someone is truly ready, they can have it all in a few minutes. And what they obtain in this way will make of them a source of blessings. The task of disciples is to build within themselves the spiritual body that will enable them to be born a second time. They already possess the idea, the kingdom of God and his righteousness, perfection, and celestial harmony. All they need to do now is to gather the materials to construct the building. Actually, once the idea is there, the materials will come by themselves. When you have an idea, a blueprint, and you expose it, it draws all the necessary elements from the cosmos, which come and arrange themselves according to the overall design. Your own work is to keep the plan firmly fixed in your heart and soul. This is how your spiritual body, the body of glory, the body of Christ, gradually takes shape within you. What is known as the second birth is the formation of this luminous body, which enables human beings to live and act on the spiritual plane. Omran Mikhail Ivanov from Daily Meditations. That is powerful, powerful stuff.
Dude, let me tell you something. That gave me chills on another level. I can tell you right now for a fact that every single thing you said right now about what he said is 1,000% true. And I can tell you from personal experience, and the quantum ecosystem, the quantum network is a testament to that statement about just holding the blueprint in your heart, and all the things will manifest from the universe. Because you know what? The quantum ecosystem, the quantum network, it's actually a combination of many systems that I have acquired along the journey of acquiring the knowledge of systems that were put together by different, very, very smart people. If you guys think I'm smart, some of these people are way smarter than me. And just, huh?
We're almost out of time.
Oh, okay. And so basically the point is that we put it all together, and yes, that was a very powerful statement. So thank you all very much. I love you, B. I love you.
Do the
Whoever's
work.
watching.
Do
Yes.
the work, and together we can change the world and make it an
Yes.
amazing place.
Like and
And
subscribe.
acknowledge the shadow. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. Thank you very much. You've been great. I hope you enjoyed it.